Teresa is so good. I just tucked her in, and I've been working on this episode for the last hour and a half, and she said, it's late, you should come to bed. I said, I've got to get the episode posted. I got to do the artwork and get it, uploaded. And she says, dead serious, no joke here, she says, you know what, that's good, because everyone will appreciate having a new episode for the weekend. So, you better appreciate having a new episode for the weekend, because Teresa said so. Episode 163 of Coast to Coast Pinball. Let's go. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to Coast to Coast Pinball. My name is Nate Shivers. This is a podcast. It's a commentary. I'm a man out of quarters. How are y'all doing tonight? Episode 163 will be the next installment of our continuing looks into tournament pinball, competitive pinball, and just kind of pinball in general at times, because my guest on these episodes is Mr. Josh Sharp, the president of the IFPA, the son of Roger Sharp, if you haven't been paying attention, the brother of Zach Sharp, the number 15th ranked player in the world, with a lot of industry insight, tournament experience, league experience, etc., etc. That's why we do these episodes, to kind of shine a light on that aspect of pinball, and I get to just chat the hobby, chat the industry with Josh, which is always a lot of fun. This episode is no different. I hope you enjoy. We go pretty heavy on Whopper stuff here at the beginning, and then we end up talking about more kind of general topics and stuff towards the end, which is definitely cool. So, without further ado, let's get this thing going.
Sharp shooting.
Joining us once again on Coast to Coast Pinball, Mr. Josh Sharp. How are you tonight?
I am doing great. Since we last talked, my son Colin has played his first game of pinball by himself. So it's an exciting time. He only plays AC/DC because he knows of the Thunderstruck song, because of Disney's Planes 2 movie, Fire and Rescue. There is a montage scene that Thunderstruck plays for like ever. It's for like 6 minutes or something. So he's a huge Thunderstruck all-day kid.
Very interesting.
And I think 3 or 4 days into playing by himself, he actually now switches the song to Thunderstruck before he starts. So.
And how old is Colin?
He is 3.
3? That's young. That's wow. I really appreciate you coming on the show, finding time between coming on other podcasts around the world to come here on Coast to Coast Pinball. Much appreciated, Josh.
I throw my weight around as much as I can.
I'm just kidding. You're the man. You're the president of IFPA. You have to. You're representing the system that is making it all worthwhile to some, or something like that. To some. Or I'm representing the system that's just for the fun and hell of it. I guess. I don't know. So I think it was pretty fun that last time you were on the show, we talked about a bunch of different topics, and then like literally 2 or 3 days later, IFPA and the Whopper point system switched to 5.1 from 5.0. You guys did a system upgrade of sorts.
Yeah, it seems to be sort of your way, right? You start talking about KISS, and then the announcement of KISS comes the next day.
Yeah, something like that. So we're looking for 5.2 tomorrow, apparently.
Right. I guess we're starting the phone call a little too late at night for me to get that out before I go to bed.
That's funny. Okay, so what happened? 5.0, which was the beginning of the year, the kind of big shift to the new changes that we've talked about on the show before. What did you see happening that prompted a shift to 5.1 in the way that we're scoring and ranking points for tournaments around the country?
So the biggest thing we saw, and it takes us a long time of analyzing even the smallest changes that we want to make to the system. And throughout the 5.0 evaluation period, we have this like massive spreadsheet that sort of went back in time and calculated what events were going to be worth. And with all the changes that we've done, it's always been very reactive to whatever the competitive landscape is like at that given point in time. And I think what we were a little naive about was that all these events were just going to keep doing what they were doing no matter what. And that's how the grading happened, was we were able to have enough data to grade to call this tournament, higher quality than this other tournament. And what we saw in the first 3-4 months of this year is all these tournaments were now changing their formats to, intentionally try and grade out more. And it was not something that we were fully prepared for. And I think, for myself as an organizer, I run a monthly tournament here, and I have no interest in, playing more than 3 or 4 games a night. But there are certainly plenty of people that are turning their random weekly night tournament into, a massive amount of play, which is good. I mean, it's really cool to see, people doing, 3 strikes, 4 strikes, triple eliminate. I mean, starting at 7 p.m. and ending at midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning. And, the 5.1 adjustment is sort of trying to, I wouldn't say try to get ahead of people's moves, but it's really just more reacting to where we're seeing things exploitable and easily exploitable.
It's such a balancing act because at one point, we know that Whopper points will drive attendance and participation to these tournaments. We've seen that happen. There's no doubt that that is a part of the energy for some players. However, I think you can absolutely do what you just said and go the other way and end up running these tournaments on weeknights often that just go too long and take forever and will eventually possibly turn people away to those tournaments.
Yeah, I think, and I think Gene was on your last show, right? And
yes,
he talked about how, they're sort of finding their natural balance of, everyone sort of has that whopperitis in the beginning of the year of like, we could have a 20-point tournament every single night, guys. What do you think? And 1 or 2 days in, you're like, it's like having like a bender. And you have a couple of nights, and all of a sudden it's like, dude, I'm hungover. I don't want to drink anymore. And, I'm hoping that, even with the 5.1 adjustments that we put in, and we can get into, those details, like, I'm hoping that things will sort of naturally self-correct themselves back into let's not kill ourselves every week because – my thought process was that there wouldn't be enough players that would want to play that intensely week after week after month after month, and it would self-correct by the number of players going down. But right now, it doesn't seem to be yet. So, I sort of get feedback from certain areas where maybe they're filling their cup up a little too much, and stuff is starting to self-correct. But other cities are still going strong.
What would you say out of all the changes that did take place there going to 5.1, what was the most significant? What would I easily recognize as, if I was running tournaments, they changed that?
Certainly the rated players thing that we're still working. It's not implemented yet, but the and we can get into Super League, which is where 80% of these changes came from. But because the number of players now determines the base value of a tournament, there is a huge benefit towards getting anyone in the room to sign up for an event because they're adding value. And, in the discussions that I've had with the country directors, there's certainly a reasonableness test there in terms of who actually should be adding value to a tournament. And our angle is to focus on players that are sort of actively participating versus, in New York with what Modern Pinball is doing with their Super League, they're able to get hundreds of tourists and one-time people that are coming into the establishment to sign up for participating in this league. And, with an extreme likelihood that they're never coming back. And combine that with the fact of how their format works, the players that end up showing up and playing a couple of games and leaving have really no impact on the tournament whatsoever.
Do you think that there would be a loss of anything by... Okay, so here's one thing that, just as a player, kind of blew my mind. At the first tournament I went to, they just asked for my name, etc., nothing more. And a few days later, I had Whopper points, and I was a ranked player. And I went to the next tournament, and I thought, well, wait a minute. How are they going to know that I am that Nate Shivers? And you guys just did. Would there be any value in adding like a player number to everybody that you had to submit every time? And if somebody literally doesn't care enough to do that, then maybe they shouldn't be counted for, value?
No, it's a little hard to enforce that just with how difficult it is anyway for organizers to submit their results. Like, and I see it even with the people that do come back to modern pinball in New York City, we don't want to make the barrier to entry any more challenging for players. When I say that I think they had 304 players this last month, and 200 of them were first timers. If we can turn 5% of those people into repeat people, I still want to make that as easy as possible. I think, the way that we're looking at it in terms of sort of not counting those players that don't come back, it's easier for us to handle it that way versus making the player do something to get themselves counted.
Sure. I guess that's the other one of those push and pull things you guys are dealing with. Is the whole idea here is to encourage growth of pinball as a competitive game or sport.
It is the catch-22 of trying to make an accurate system and trying to make sure that we are spreading the love.
You and I were actually joking about this, and I think that the gist of what we were kind of talking about via whatever text or email was that it used to be, I think you said, like the 20 top guys just like, kind of stroking their own egos, and I kind of quipped to you, well, now it's the 200 top guys doing it, and joking, and it's clearly more than that. I mean, we had Gene on last episode, and he's number 400. Heck, I'm like somewhere in the 2,000 range, and I'm into it. So there's a lot more people than that are into it. But at the same time, it still isn't the be-all, end-all of competitive pinball.
No, I think... And, it's easy for me to always be talking on my soapbox about, the points not being that important because having played since 93, I've been playing still longer without whoppers than I have with. So I'm very used to playing for the competition and for putting myself in competitive situations and sort of letting whatever happens with whoppers just happen. And it's tough for me to just tell people to behave the same way and not worry about it because they do. And it's not fair for me to try to push, how I feel about it to become how they feel about it.
So we have the Super League in New York City, and I have played...
Wait, did you play in it?
I don't think they were actually doing it the last couple times I've been there. I have played with those people and that tournament director, and he's a really good dude.
He is.
And I think they all are just excited about pinball, first and foremost. But that is sort of definitely a, quote, exploit of just anybody that walks through the door, like, hey, you're in the league now. We'll all get more points because you're here is sort of, I guess, the quickest way to define what was going on there.
It is.
What other exploits have you been seeing since the change to 5.0?
So the getting to the other part besides the number of players is the number of games played that leads towards the tournament having a grading out to a higher percentage. So, sticking with Super League, and I really, really like the Super League's format, which is they pretty much pretend that they're Pinball Expo or any other big weekend tournament, except it's open for the entire month. And instead of having, you went to Expo, there's or in disc, and there's 9 games, and you have to, play your best 5 or 6 out of the 9. They straight up pick 25 games for the month, and it is open qualifying for the month, and they have their live standings, and the same way that, you get 100 points for first place on all 25 games would be 2,500 points, and that would be the the highest you can get for your standing. And what I love about it is there's nothing here in Chicago that there's always an open tournament, and it's available at the player's leisure whenever it's available for them to do it. And any establishments that sort of have staff that can handle running the event, it's a really good idea. Because if I'm, my wife's gone for the night and I have nothing to do, I can go out and I'm going to go play in the, the open league for this month because this might be my only chance to do it. Versus there being a dedicated evening. It's
sort of the ultimate pump and dump in a lot of ways. You have
it really is. And if you're a local person and, it's something to do, and if you're coming in from out of town and that well, hell, I'm going to be in New York in July. I know I can play in this thing in July because, it's always going to be available. and I can sort of make it whenever I want to make it. And I think that flexibility is something that, locations like Modern Pinball, and you can think of some others like the Pinball Wizard, all the places you go to on your business trips.
Sure,
So, like,
yeah, exactly.
Wizard, like the arcade in Pelham.
Pinball Wizard. I'm thinking Silverball Museum. I'm thinking, there's more. There's certainly others, but yeah,
and certainly from the location owners, the ability for them to, obviously Monitored isn't on coin drop, but it's a really great way of drawing people to keep coming back. And you see it when you see the pump and dumps for the weekend tournaments. If people get interested, especially even at the top, you don't need the 400 players that Modern gets. If you get 20 or 30 people that are actually genuinely interested in competing against each other during the month, you're going to see the earnings on those games go up.
Absolutely. It's sort of surprising that locations don't just actively pull a few games out and say, these are our tournament games this month. Put up your high scores. The 16 highest players are going to be in an event for a $400 cash prize or whatever.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, just a dedicated staffer to record score. Whatever those logistics are, I can't imagine, and this goes, Steve Epstein, you go back to the Broadway arcade days, and he was always involved in, getting tournaments set up because he saw the value in the cash box by giving reason for people to show up and play and compete.
I read some comments posted so far this year, and maybe you can clarify. Are you seeing a change in formats with people in regards to 2-player games throughout, bracketed tournaments versus 4-player games? Is there any shift in that?
There's definitely, a lot of it depends on how many games a place has available, but if you a lot of places don't have 800 games available like the Papa facility or anywhere else. If you have a limited number of games available, like let's just say 4,
yep.
If you play 2-player games, you can get 8 people done quicker than if you had, I don't know, not that many. If you were playing 4-player games, it takes double the time. And before, and this came up before we started this year, and the idea that we didn't like was a game played is one, data point. If I play a game of AC/DC and I put up 17 million, it shouldn't really matter how many scores I'm comparing that to make that game played more valuable. It's still me just playing one game. And if I'm able to play more games, I can demonstrate my skill more often. And we're definitely seeing people try to shove more games in an hour. And it's not going to be a change for 2015, but we're definitely evaluating giving more weight to 4-player games. That way, at least to balance it out, where if someone has to choose between doing a head-to-head bracket and doing, Papa groups of 4, that if you have a 16-player bracket, it's going to grade out the same way, whether you do it one or the other.
We were playing at this local tournament I just played at the Harbortown Pub, and somebody was on a game of Twilight Zone that was literally holding the entire tournament up. They were the 3rd player of 4, so there was a player to play after them that they were playing heads up against. So there was no reason for them to do anything but try and score as much as they possibly could, right? So they were really, and it was literally every other game was done and empty, and we were trying to kind of keep people from running in and jumping on games because it's a tournament, but it's still a public location.
Right.
And the thing that was being discussed was, man, they need to make this game harder. They need to set this thing up harder. But the guy who owns the games is sitting there, and he's probably going, I don't want to make this game too hard, then nobody's going to play it. Do you see that as an issue out there? I mean, should operators or tournament directors trying to be toughening up the games for tournaments?
I know that, and I have a pretty good relationship with GameWorks here, in Chicago. I changed the settings for the evening, and I changed them back after we're done. So, I certainly don't think it's worth saying, to the player base on the 29 days out of the month that there isn't a tournament there. Sorry, guys, this is how we set up the games hard because, of this one night where we don't want this guy playing on Twilight Zone forever. I think, if depending on how the location is and depending on who the operator is, I've had really good fortune just over the last 20 years of running stuff that, I've developed a good relationship with the location owners and with the operators that I've worked at that, whether it's me being given keys or me being able to make a list beforehand and pretty much having things set up the way I want it for the evening. And I think a lot of that just comes with the relationship the player base has with that location. And with a dedicated player base, it's coming back, week after week or month after month. With that comes some, power and leverage for that group to be able to sort of, I won't say, hold them hostage with demands and making sure that, you guys don't serve grilled chicken and we have 30 people here that want to eat grilled chicken, so add it to the menu. But there is something to be said of, if we have 30 people coming, 20 people coming on a, really crappy Tuesday night, if a tech guy, and most of these people do, if you're going to go collect your route, stop off at this place on that night, change things to the way we want it for that day, even if it's, at GameWorks, all I do is turn off the ball save.
Yep.
And that pretty much does it in terms of cutting games down by a ton, because instead of getting, up to 6 balls a game, you get 3 and you turn extra balls off. Yep. And those two little things, it'll be amazing how much time savings there is just from those little tweaks, and not even talking about, pulling out lane posts or doing anything crazy.
Sure. No, I think that's a great point. We were just plunging extra balls, which adds time every time you do it.
It does.
Are you seeing? I was talking to Gene about his league there in San Francisco, and they're capped with a waiting list, and I think it was a pretty healthy waiting list. What are you seeing with leagues versus tournaments happening out there, and how should the local people running these tournaments, in your opinion, sort of view waiting lists, and what do you do when you have too many players, and should you go for more tournaments versus leagues? Advantages, disadvantages, in your opinion?
Well, I think so. We have both here in Chicago, and we've actually, with the 5.0 rules, we had some monthly tournaments that tried to become sort of quarterly leagues to try to add their games together across months, and it sort of backfired for them, because with a league comes commitment. And if you have, let's just, you turn your monthly tournament into, let's just call it a quarterly league. If someone misses January, your player count isn't going to go up for February and March if you have a guy that takes a 0 for that first month. And I think the monthly tournament turned league here in Chicago, they had 6 players the first month instead of 15 to 20-ish, and they already knew they were screwed for February, because those 6 guys would have had a third of that league time advantage over anyone else that joined late. So I think a lot of it just has to do, again, with focusing on what the player base wants. So if there's a bunch of casual people that can't make it all the time, having one-night events where there's a winner and it's over might be better. If you have, people that are used to bowling leagues and bowling every Thursday, and people that are really committed, you can definitely... We have a monthly league in Chicago that, we have a waiting list, and we have 36 members, and I think the waiting list is, 10 or 15 deep. And, people are committed to that far more than they are the location tournaments. It helps for our league. We get to play in collectors' houses, so it's a little bit more of, you show up, you get dinner, and you socialize and that stuff. So it's a little bit more of a quote-unquote event.
Do you think that there is room in competitive pinball on the local level for organizers to make a profit, or at least make some money running these events? Or should all the money go back to the players? Entry fee wise, any way they can make money on it.
To me, the importance that I've always had was, I want to make the location and the operator money. I remember, and this goes back to even in college, I spend time setting up this league, and we have 25 people, and the operator was like, "Oh, let me give you guys some credits," and I had to yell at them to be like, "No, don't give us credits, dude. Everyone's here, everyone's willing to pay for their 5 games for the night." It's that's why this was created, so you could, make some money out of these things.
And you'll buy more games and keep your games in shape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's the location owner sees it with the food and the drink, and the operator sees it in the cash box. And, there's just not enough money that would be worth, pulling off the top to run the event. I think, we had 13 or 14 people at the last GameWorks tournament, and it was $5. It was 15 people, I think, and we had $5 a head. And, for me to try to pretend for running the bracket I get, a 10% VIG off the top. Like, it just isn't worth it for me. But, there are, like, the league that I used to run in Champaign that now, my best friend still runs it. They take a percentage of the money from their league fees, and they hold a huge pizza party at the end of the season.
That's
so
cool.
There's definitely some things that, you can do with the money. I would say paying it out to the organizer, it's not enough to move the needle anyway, so I wouldn't even bother.
At what level of tournament should the tournament organizer step aside and not be an active player?
Never.
Never.
And it really comes down to, organizer preference and player preference. I can tell you that, we're going to Sweden in 2 weeks to run our World Championship, and Zach and I will both be playing in it and running it. And we run it so we can play in it because it's a hell of a lot of fun.
Let's talk about the World Championships in Sweden. Who's playing? How'd they get there? And is this the second year of the World Championships?
Second year.
Second year?
No, this is not. This is the 12th year.
Oh, I'm thinking the state championship series.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
12th year. We started IFPA similar to Papa, where there was a previous group of organizers. So they ran the first 4, and we have run 5 through 11. And this is the 12th.
How does one qualify for the World Championships?
So you a March Madness guy?
Absolutely. Go Arizona.
So, all right. Arizona participated in my favorite college basketball game of all time. When Illinois made it to the Final Four in 2005. The comeback from all comebacks.
No.
Sorry, buddy.
Ugh.
So top 64 players in the world. Similar to, well, now it's 68 teams in March Madness, but we have at-large bids, and we have country exemptions that are modeled after the conference championships for the mid-majors that they do for the NCAAs.
Yep.
So, I can't pretend to say that the world rankings are really fair for everyone around the world when you have, a country like Japan or a country like New Zealand where for them to compete at the global level with their world ranking is really impossible unless they get on a flight, 20 times a year. So we reserve 2 spots for every qualified country. And outside of that, the rest of the field is made up of at-large berths that are all based on where you're ranked at the beginning of the year. So this is all January 1st, 2015 rankings.
Gotcha. So
I think 19 countries represented.
how many Americans?
16.
16 Americans. How many Swedes?
7.
7 Swedes. That's what I thought. Is that the second largest
It
representation?
is. And actually, I think we had a couple of dropouts. Sweden may be up to 9 now.
Excellent. Any interesting countries that we would just not believe are sending someone that's coming?
Let's run through the list. You tell me. Canada, not really surprising.
Not surprising.
Germany, Italy, Netherlands, the UK, Australia, Austria,
That's a little outside the box.
Japan, New Zealand.
Now, Japan's surprising. Who's coming from Japan?
Japan is Ashitaka Kintaro.
Okay, he's my. That's who I'm rooting
He
for.
or she is ranked I think it's a he, but 1,088th in the world.
Well, I'm rooting for him. No offense to you. Sorry.
He's gonna bring it down. Yeah. And the other Japanese player is Tatsunori Naruke, who has actually played for a couple of years. He's been there the last couple. He's really good, and he's ranked 120th.
Okay, then I'm ranked.
Coming out of Japan is really good.
I changed my vote. I'm rooting for him. So.
He is. He's good. I think he's actually qualified in the top 32 and made the cut past the qualifying rounds a couple of times.
Excellent. Is there going to be any streaming of the World Championships? Any way I can follow along?
We don't know yet, but we are hoping to. I don't know how, I have my camera rig that I'm not bringing because I heard someone has one out. This year is the year of I don't want to carry on everything, and we did that a couple of years ago in Germany, so we shipped whatever we could, and we're going to leave it up to the Swedes to make it as cool as it can be.
And who is the reigning champion? I'm so ignorant on this. Is it Yorian?
It is Yorian.
It is Yorian. Okay, I guess I do know this.
Yorian beat Keith in a 9-game insane battle. With and you can watch that 9-game series, including Game 9 of Medieval Madness being broken down because I accidentally hit record. I accidentally hit stop when the game started and record when the game was over.
Let's talk about what we might see from IFPA and Whopper, points next year. What does Josh think right now, about almost halfway through the year? What are some ideas you're thinking about modifying the Whopper system for next year?
So some of the things we've noticed, we touched on the 4-player games versus the 2-player games,
yep.
And trying to just level the playing field of there being no advantage to playing something that's quicker. So, whatever it takes to give people equal want to play, Papa style versus head-to-head versus single-player crap. So that's definitely on the table. The second thing on the table is right now we're using longest path for grading out tournaments.
Yeah, so it's like whatever would be the longest path for any player to get to the final.
Yes. So, and the big reason behind that was we didn't want to run into a situation where, players would be losing on purpose to extend matches. And so things like that just wouldn't be good for pinball. If well, man, I have 4 games that I have left to lose. Maybe I'll lose a couple and raise the tournament value 10%. That wasn't something we could do, so we always just used the theoretical longest path. And what we found, especially with a lot of people using Brackalope as their app of choice to run tournaments, is the 3-strike and 4-strike and 5-strike tournaments. When you look at the longest path, it is such a fringe case of ever happening that you end up with we're giving away so many free rounds that are never happening. So we're looking into either my proposal to everyone is going to be either just doing the actual path of the winner, and if someone wants to intentionally lose, they can put themselves at risk of not winning the tournament and just do that. And there is an issue there with organizers not keeping track of how many rounds are being played or whatever. And in that case, we would actually use the shortest path. So it would help, bring stuff back down to a more reasonable level and stop sort of giving away free rounds and free games that aren't actually being played ever. And, the same could be said for when you look at a bracket tournament, like even a straight up single elimination, 16-player bracket tournament with no buys is 4 rounds.
Yep.
If you add a 17th player, there is a 5th round. So everyone gets credit for that 5th round because it is now the longest path.
When possibly less than half of those people played.
Right. So in a 17-player bracket, 2 people play in the 5th round and 15 people don't. Yep. So, my proposal there is we're going to probably head towards the path of doing what the expected value of those rounds are. So, it'll move that 4th to the 5th round. You'll need 20 whatever players. When more than half of them have to play the 5th round, we'll count the 5th round sort of thing, just to stop giving away free stuff. And then the last big thing, and this is going to be a lot harder because it's actually formula point distribution related and not just counting games, which is something that I can do without Brian Shepard's help on the code side, is, if you go to Modern Pinball the next time you're out east and you don't have time to play in all 25 games for their month-long pump and dump, if you show up and play 1 game and leave, we're looking into what I'm calling fully participating in an event, because if you have a small group of people that definitely can play in those 25 games, then you can still, you can't not count that if people are actually playing it. But what we're looking at doing is removing those players that didn't put in a full ticket or a full card as someone that counts towards the distribution of the points. So they wouldn't be like removed from the results and not earn any Whopper points for themselves. We have a part of the formula that is there's a dynamic distribution and a linear distribution. So some portion of your points is straight up. If there's 100 players, everyone gets 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, from top to bottom. Yeah. And there's a dynamic part which drops the rate at which the points are awarded based on how many players there are. So if you go to a tournament with 10 people, you'll see, the rate of Whoppers go from first to last. There'll be a nice steep drop. If you go to one with 100 players, the drop will be way less steep. So you end up with a lot of players, getting what I call meaningful Whopper points. It's
Sure.
Usually, if you have a tournament that's worth, 20 or more, pretty much if you're in the top 10% of the field, you would get double-digit Whoppers. So if you had 200 players, you'd get 20 players that would leave with more than 10 points. And the problem that we're seeing, and this is, again, a Super League thing, is pretty much everyone who's actively putting in their full card is guaranteeing themselves a double-digit Whopper performance because of all those players that are not fully participating. So they have no chance of competing.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it's about tweaking, how many quote-unquote fully participating players are involved. And if we notice that, only 20 people played, the points distributed would act like it was a 20-person tournament. So fun stuff like that.
All right, I want to do some quote forum static here.
Oh yeah.
With Josh Sharp. All right, most of this is coming from the Tilt forums, which tend to be sort of tournament competitive-minded talk on these forums.
Forum static.
All right, first one I want to bring up: tournament etiquette. And I think this was a specific question about tournament etiquette that was brought up that I really like the question. Let's say somebody plunges their ball and they're in a tournament. We're talking bigger tournaments, probably. Maybe a small tournament, too. I could see it at any tournament. Plunges their ball, instantly drains, and turns around and walks away. Ball saver kicks a ball out. What should the crowd do? What should the players playing this person do, or if anything?
So nobody should say anything. But 100% of the time, many people say something. In those situations, it is pretty much like even I won't even hesitate to, you can't help it. It's like telling somebody to get out of the way of a car.
Yeah.
Like, you have to yell that, hey man, your ball's not done, your ball's not, everyone's freaking out. I've never enforced any sort of no coaching rule. And if I put on my Kaylee George rule exploitation hat on, if you're playing a game and I yell at you that, hey, your ball is saved, and you go back up and play, there's no ruling that can really be made to DQ you as the player. Because if that was the case, if I was playing against you, I would help you on purpose. That way I would have coached you and you would have, you'd be DQ'd.
Exactly.
So yeah. It's definitely one of those things that, like, it's nature of the beast. It's sort of the best way I describe it is if you see like a golf, if you're watching golf or watching like a tennis match and you see the ref, especially in tennis, it's when the crowd gets all crazy and the ref's like, quiet please from their chair.
Yeah. It's
sort of just like that.
And by crazy, you mean they start speaking at normal speaking volumes.
I would like a water.
Okay, in the same sort of vein, what about second player, two-player heads-up match? First player clearly sees second player has surpassed him in score or thinks they've surpassed him in score and says, you got me. Should there be a rule against that?
There is now, I think. So in terms of what means anything, I think the rule that Mark from Papa and I think the verbiage states that a player can say that to other players all they want and it's meaningless. If a player says that to a tournament director, like if I'm
you're
tournament
basically conceding at that point.
You are conceding. The only concedes that count are to tournament directors and not to other players. So
I think we all sort of know the moral of the story is if you don't know and you're playing, do not stop.
Do not stop ever. That is by far the easiest thing. Is there any, consequence to the person that improperly, got you to stop? No. There isn't more so than just, stop being a bad person.
Well, and I would just...
And you feel bad because I would doubt that anyone would intentionally try to do it.
You would hope not.
But, that person would feel awful if they did think they had it. And I'm sure, there's been situations where if that person then wants to go ahead and concede anyway, that probably ends up happening on its own sort of organically. But
you hope that's the case, but man,
you never know.
I've played in poker tournaments where everybody's staring at each other and the guy goes, flush. And the guy mucks his cards. And he goes, no, I was saying, do you have a flush? I've seen it happen. So
what is the rule there? You muck it's dead, right?
It's dead.
Hand?
Dead.
Yeah.
And dead hand. There are tournaments, there are states that say if you misrepresent your hand on purpose, you're disqualified too, though. They added that in because that was actually happening quite a bit.
Okay. Luckily, I haven't seen anything that bad yet. But I'm usually a big fan of adding a rule after something bites us in the ass. So we'll wait until that actually happens, and then I'll add a rule about it.
All right, I saw another post from Mr. Ryan Wanger. League format with a handicap. And we won't go into the exact details of what they were posting about, but what are your thoughts on handicapping pinball?
I think it's great. Again, it's sort of what I keep touching on. It really depends on what the local player base wants. So, our league here in Chicago, and I think I included that in the thread posting to it, but for years our league was handicapped in a way that every month the groupings went top 4, next 4, next 4, next 4. So we'd end up with, we have a pretty big spread of talent here in Chicago. So there was a good chance for, Lyman Sheets and Dave Heggie and Zach and myself and Jason Werdrick, the top 8 to 10 people in the league would sort of always be battling each other, month after month, unless someone, tanked and dropped back down and then they moved themselves back up. And, is it unfair that we have to kill each other all the time? Probably. It certainly brings the standings closer together than if we were all beating up on, lower ranked people. But I think what's amazing is we've actually changed away from that, not because the, quote unquote good players felt like it was unfair for us, but there was a socializing aspect of our league that many of the lower ranked players wanted to play with us.
Sure.
And, their ability not just to, be able to see the skills and you've heard Bowen talk about it and I'll talk about it too, that, you really get better watching good players play. And, not only were they were missing that opportunity, but they were also missing the opportunity of sort of keeping up to date on each other's lives. So, when you have a league, and I think our league's been around since '98, so, we're close to 20 years of having relationships with these people. And over the course of 6 or 7 months, you want a chance to be able to run into multiple people and spend a couple of hours in their group for that night. So I think it really just matters, group of player to group of player. But if it works for handicapping because maybe you have a few good people that are way better than everyone else, if it gets more people interested in playing, I'm all for it.
Excellent.
It's not worth whoppers, but I'm all for it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so moving on to something that's much more important than everything else we've talked about. I'm playing in the EM World Championships being put on by Clay Harrell, by Clay's Place at the VFW Pinball event, sponsored by Domino's Pizza. This is sort of like new breaking news. It is.
Wow.
Yeah, a listener of the show who is a big pinball fan who will be in the tournament is, I believe, I don't want to misquote this here because I'm not looking at the email, but he let me know that he works for Domino's Pizza in the corporate side of things, and he has attained sponsorship for the pinball tournament. So it'll be the EM World Championship sponsored by Domino's Pizza on next Friday, May 15th. Okay, so I'm playing in an EM only tournament here. I'm not going to know most of these games rule-wise. You're my coach. I'm going in there semi-blind. I'll know a few games. And I kind of get the gist of, figure out how to light the spinner and hit the spinner if there's a spinner. what else should I be trying to do? Give me some basics here.
I definitely, well, first thing you do is, if you're me, is you call your dad.
Or if you're me, I text you.
Right. I think, like, the strategy that I'll fall back on, especially with sort of the control aspect of playing a game, is don't be afraid to get into a see ball, hit ball style. I think, what ends up happening, especially if you're going back into old EM stuff, is you practice, trying to do a live catch or a drop catch, trying to do modern skills on an old game, and it really messes you up. So if it's sort of like allowing yourself, to be free for a minute and just sort of go with the flow of the game. And, I think not being afraid to sort of let that happen instead of forcing control is something that's, you'll know in certain games that, especially like Classics Williams games, if you try to like live catch, the flipper will sort of like energize when the ball hits it, and like it won't stick. You'll just pop it up and over the out lane like every time. So I think sort of like feeling it out and picking your spots on when you want to control. I would do a lot of dead bounce overs to try to get the ball on the flipper that you want. That's the easiest way to not having the flipper sort of not work for you. And other than that, complete a set of drop targets, find a spinner, find a way to light the spinner, find double bonuses if they're available. Those are really big. I'm like glancing at my EMs in the basement to see if they all have common strategies, and it is a lot of, double bonus when you can take it, and lit spinners when you can take it.
Playing on games like this is always what I run into. In a qualifying style tournament, I will, nudge pretty forcefully just to start to see what I can get away with. This is sort of a get in and it's a 2 strikes or 3 strikes you're out tournament. I'm not going to want to get up there and really test the tilt settings of all these games, especially if some of them could end the entire game. Do you think it's best to just go up there and do not nudge, or just watch what everyone else is doing?
I would definitely pay attention to other people playing, and I think that even goes to like games that you're not playing. Any read you can get, it's sort of like getting a free read on a green if someone happens to be behind you. Like, take that as all information, because it is really hard in your 3 balls or in your 5 balls to know how far you can push it. And I certainly, if you sort of know you're having a bad ball and your bonus is garbage, you can use that as as your ball is draining, to just give it a little wiggle and see if at least get past the point where this game is, you can figure out if the game is stupid tight or not.
Sure.
And, you don't need to sit there and like, man, I wonder if I could really rock it if it's really loose. But for me, it's more about like, all right, you can do a little bit. And as long as you can do a little bit, you'll be okay in terms of like standard nudging versus like, trying to slide save or anything that isn't going to happen anyway.
Sure. Sort of a question that straddles back to what we were talking about with etiquette and whatnot. I was playing in Texas in the Classics tournament, and are you familiar with the game Capersville?
I am. Oh, what a garbage game.
So
yes.
I think a lot of people thought that. I pulled that game for the first round of the finals, so it was a heads-up game, single elimination, and we were playing that game. I was player 1, I want to say.
I think I heard you. This was the tilting out of the holes.
Yes, I locked balls in holes, drained. They stay for the next player.
Right.
I felt after somebody pointed it out to me that what was possibly happening, and I'm not trying to accuse anybody, but somebody from his own town told me this is what was happening. The second player was tilting as hard as he could when his ball drained, to make sure there were no balls there waiting for me when I stepped up. Good strategy or poor etiquette?
It really depends on when they do it. So there actually is something in the rules about intentionally tilting a game. And obviously, like the biggest issue that we've seen this happen is on Adam's Family. After you drain, if you tilt, it will give you an extra greed letter. Yep. And I mean, we saw Bowen, does it all the time, and he did it in Papa Finals. And, it's a game strategy to do, and it was sort of one of those after the facts of like, you guys know, anybody realize that this was illegal just based on the rules that we haven't been following too closely? And I'd say it's definitely towards the realm of good strategy for that player, because unless he's blatantly, after his ball goes down, shoving the game, it's really hard to judge intent of player. So for a tournament director to be like, hey, you intentionally tilted that machine, that's a really tough comment to make hold water.
Sure.
So it is what it is. It's like someone draining on purpose or not. If they make it look good, it's really tough to try to blame that guy for not trying his best and draining on purpose.
Absolutely. All right, and the big important question of the week. What did you think of the KISS release?
I gotta say, I did not see any artwork beforehand. The artwork blew me away. It's very exciting looking. So I'm very and I'm one of those people that gets excited with every single game that comes out ever. Even if I was alive in 1963 and Capersville was released to the newspapers, I would have been so excited to play
Until you played it.
Until I played it.
That's funny.
No, I'm really excited to play it. It looks very John Borg. I can sort of see where some of those shots are going to be, and if they feel as good as those shot angles feel on his other games, I think we'll be asking where's the code here in a minute.
I think it's
we'll
so
see how
funny.
It goes.
John Borg had been telling people leading up ahead of Walking Dead that, oh man, I got to do everything I wanted on this game. This game I got to spend so much time. There's a lot of hype behind Walking Dead, and I don't know. I don't hate Walking Dead. There's just some actual, a lot of times we end up liking or not liking games based on stuff that really the designer didn't have a lot to do with. But Walking Dead is one of those instances where I don't really like some of the things that John Borg did there.
He had too much time.
Well, I don't know. It's funny. So then I see KISS, and I'm like, no, this is the game, dude. This game looks like it's going to have fun shots, interesting shots. Plus, it's I don't know. It looked, like you said, it looks fun. It looks exciting.
Oh, and what I appreciate, and I'm staring at my Walking Dead now, like, there's shots on that game that don't feel like anything else. Like, that arena ramp is crazy. And like, I can't remember a game that is that tight of a ramp, that low on the flipper. And there was definitely, you can see sort of John's shot angles in Walking Dead, but he definitely took the time to make different feeling shots with how, the shots interact from shot to shot, too. And I think, when I look at KISS, it definitely seems more boilerplate Borg to me, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially, like you said, if it's a swing and a miss for some people, for someone to think outside the box, it's really good for these designers to do what they know if it's something that's been appreciated in the past.
And I don't
because
even
there
know
is so much, we can get into the fact that, pinball is still just a bat and bats and a ball, flipping a ball around and making shots in open space. And whatever they can do to make something feel good, it's probably going to feel good no matter, what game you slap on the title. And it's up to the programmer to, bring everything together.
It's so funny because I'm so torn on The Walking Dead because I actually had a lot of fun playing it in the tournament the other night. Like, a lot of fun. I think that there is some great risk-reward there. The randomness coming out of the pops drives everyone nuts, but you know what? Maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. I think that the problem nowadays is there's so few games that come out in comparison to years past where literally there was, 10, 12 games a year possibly, that every game I think I'm always looking at it, and maybe it's partly the show does it to me. I look at every game as, would that be in my room for the next 10 years or not? And maybe it wouldn't be, but you know what? Neither would a lot of classic Bally Williams games. But when I play them once in a while, they're great.
Yeah, and I think, what's crazy with the hobby being different now than it was, back in the Williams days, is that nobody really had collections the way they do now. So
exactly.
It was, I can remember as a kid, sneaking. We had a Williams test site that was across the street from our house, across a couple of busy intersections, but definitely being told that I was not allowed to cross those intersections to go there. And Zach and I would go there every day in the summer and play. And yeah, there is something to. And I don't know, maybe if you're also paying to play the game, as you play one game at a time, there's something different than, I don't know, it's more disposable when it's in your house and you can nitpick it because it's not going anywhere.
Well,
so you have the time to spend on it.
Look at a game like Whodunit. if that game came out today, it'd get slaughtered.
Oh,
But it's kind of a cool thing because it was a piece of time, and when you play it, once a year, you're like, oh, this is fun.
I agree. There's definitely, and you get that, like, at least I get that if you, like, go to Papa and you're walking around and it's like, oh, look at especially all the older Data East games that got neglected because they were going up against, strong Williams games back in the day. When you get a chance to sort of get past the fact that, whatever Data East game is a blatant ripoff of whatever Williams game came out 6 months earlier.
Yep.
It gives it a chance to stand on its own, and you can have a fun time because it's a new game again.
You're so right, because there's some of those games that layout-wise, there's not, like take, I don't know, Back to the Future. There's, like, really nothing wrong with that game. The rule set's not that great. The art's not fantastic, but there's nothing wrong with that game.
Yeah, and certainly if you found one, I'd be likely to play it if I walked into an arcade that had a bunch of games that I already owned and a Back to the Future. I'd probably go right up to that Back to the Future and play it first.
Yestercades, Red Bank, New Jersey. It's waiting for you.
Okay, can't wait.
All right. Josh, thank you so much for coming back on tonight. I look forward to these shows every month. We will catch up with you next month after you've won the World Championships and defeated my Japanese rooting interest in the finals. I look forward to hearing all about it. Thanks a lot, man.
I'd make a comment that we won the war, but that would be not politically correct.
I can't believe you just said that. And I'm not.
I think the only reason why I said that was I recently saw the Pitch Perfect 2 preview, and Pitch Perfect is a great movie for those that have not seen it. But there was my wife and I were sitting, eating dinner, and it was on in the background. And one of the random scenes, they were like singing off against some German team, and one of the girls was like, "We won the war," and walked away, and it was in the preview. We were like, that doesn't seem right.
That's funny. Well, all in jest. All in jest.
Yes.
All right, man. We'll talk to you again next time.
Got it.
As always, I want to thank Josh Sharp for joining us here with this sharp shooting segment. I don't know if we mentioned, I don't think we did, but I am going to be hosting a seminar at the Replay FX Festival this July and August. I believe we're actually doing it into August, but it starts in July and ends in August. It crosses those dates. The Saturday night of the Replay FX Festival, I'm going to be hosting a forum with not just Josh Sharp, not just Zach Sharp, but also Roger Sharp. So the whole Sharp family, the pinball side of it at least, will be there. We'll be talking some history. We'll be talking about the rise of Josh and Zach as players, living with their father, growing up in the pinball household, of course. But we're also going to get everyone's thoughts on current events and things happening out there. So I think that'll be interesting. I believe that is actually going to be Saturday night, August 1st in Pittsburgh at the Convention Center. So if you aren't already planning on attending Replay FX, you're crazy. You should go there. So until next time, that is episode 163 of Coast to Coast Pinball. I appreciate you listening, and we'll talk to you again very soon. All right, so let's talk about... I don't know, hold on. 39.
Oh my God, please leave that in.